right, now we move to the City of Wilmington, Delaware for the Vacant Property Registration Fee Program with Jeffrey Starkey and Cynthia Ferguson. Thank you for joining us.
On behalf of Mayor James Baker and the Wilmington City Council, we thank you for this opportunity. Vacant properties is not a City of Wilmington, Delaware problem. It's a national problem that has plagued communities for years. Vacant and abandoned buildings are a source of challenges for cities across the nation. In total, vacant properties, especially long-term vacancies, breed crime, lower property values, and make life uncomfortable for communities. Since the 1970s, Wilmington has required the owners of vacant properties to register their properties and to pay an annual $25 registration fee. In May of 2003, the Mayor of Wilmington, Delaware, in conjunction with Wilmington City Council, amended the code to increase the registration fees. These fees are based on the total number of years a property is vacant. The sliding scale fee structure was creatively designed to offer a disincentive to owning vacant properties. When developing the fee structure, we reviewed the man hours and the mandated funds spent to keep vacant properties code compliant. Between the cost of property maintenance and the time inspectors and city solicitors spend prosecuting violators, it was determined that a vacant registration fee should reflect our actual costs for code compliance. Once we analyzed the data, it revealed that the longer property was vacant, the more we had invested in their property. The incremental vacant registration fee structure reflects the cost spent on code enforcement. Other jurisdictions have required vacant property registration. This is the first time that a sliding scale was used for assessment of registration fees. Because our fees are based on the total number of years a property is vacant, property owners cannot sell, trade, or re-register properties to keep the fees low. Once a vacant date is verified, that date is used to determine the assessment, regardless of how many times a property changes ownership. All residents of the City of Wilmington benefit from a vacant property program. These results are tangible. From January of 2003 to January 2007, we have seen a 22% incredible reduction in vacant property fees. Folks, that's incredible, 22% reduction. It is our intent to eliminate the long-standing vacants. During that same period, we have saw a 16% in properties vacant for 10 years or more. That's even more incredible. The decrease in vacant properties has transformed the city's neighborhoods into viable communities in which we live and work. There has been a reduction in crime and vandalism associated with these properties. The decrease in calls for service to the police has allowed us to redirect calls for officers to other areas of concern. Additionally, the reduction of vacant properties is increasing the values of properties throughout the city. Largely because of the renewed community interest, Wilmington is seeing a boom in new homes. In the past 4 years, we have witnessed the construction of thousands of new homes. What I can tell you in this presentation is the faces that you see when you see residents come up to you and say, "Thank you for getting that vacant property out of my particular community." It makes a big difference, and I can't express that in this presentation for you. You just have to see the faces when you talk to those folks. Cynthia?
Media coverage has created an interest in our vacant property program. We've been contacted by at least 19 municipalities across the country. One such city was Revere, Massachusetts. After researching the legality of vacant property fees under Massachusetts law, Revere adopted vacant property codes, basing their ordinance on Wilmington city codes. It was approved by their city council just this December 19th, 2006. In November, they will issue their first vacant property fees. The annual registration of vacant buildings and registration fees is a well-written ordinance that has withstood challenges in 4 Delaware courts. Throughout the past 4 years, there have been amendments to the code to make it more workable. During those years, we have offered administrative waivers if the property is undergoing renovation, is for sale, for rent, or slated for demolition. We have offered 90-day extensions to a waiver, and we have increased the time allotted to apply for waivers. 4 years into this, we believe we have developed a model program. It is evident that assessing vacant registration fees offers a true deterrent to owning a property and allowing it to remain vacant. Reaching deep into the pockets of property owners really makes the difference. This ordinance was not designed to generate funds. In fact, by offering one-time waivers or voiding fees that have become occupied, even if on the last day of the billing year, we have deducted 38% of the current year's fees. Of the 623 properties we billed last year, 152 were given one-time waivers. During the last 2 months of the year, We voided fees on 70 because the properties became occupied, 26 because they were sold, and 5 because they were demolished. That alone demonstrates the progress we are making on eliminating these vacant eyesores. I have to say, I'm the person who manages this program on a daily basis, and it can be difficult telling somebody that they owe $3,500, but I'm really proud of what this program has done for the shape of Wilmington.
Thank you. Ed?
My crude interpretation of what you're doing is that you have dramatically increased the price or the fine for abandoned property. That's a good idea probably, but I don't see the innovation.
Well, for one thing, it's not a fine, it's a registration fee.
It's fine, okay.
Throughout the country, there have been registration fees, and they have been nominal administrative registration fees. $25 doesn't do anything. Our fees are $500, $1,000, typically $3,500, and $3,500 is an incentive to get a property occupied. $25 or $100 is not.
So that the innovation is to raise the number?
The innovation.
Right, and to make the property owners accountable. Right now, taxpayers are paying for us to go out there and cite and comply and do all those things. And right now, that's not fair to the taxpayers. So our costs are associated and are accountable to that property owner.
You want to follow up there?
No, I don't see the innovation.
Well, really it's the sliding scale. It's the fact that, like Jeff said, the longer a property is vacant, the more money we put into it, and we're using a sliding scale to recoup the money and also to make them accountable.
And to deter you from having a vacant property in our city.
Okay,
And
Carl?
22% is a huge reduction. It's over 300 properties that we reduced in 3 years.
Carl, David, and Bill.
I'm a little unclear about how the program actually works. Is the fee, if I understand it correctly, the fee becomes a lien on the property.
That's correct.
Yeah,
And- I'm sorry, and then that if you wait until that property is sold, or does the city ever act to actually exercise that lien as it would with back taxes and take the property?
One of the processes that we have a working group that we meet monthly with all our finance people, all our real estate and housing development. We look at who owes us the most money, and we look at strategically how we're going to go after some of those properties. We have the ability to take them to sheriff's office at any time, and we look at properties that owe us $10,000, particularly long-standing vacants, 10 years or more. Those are the ones that are really deterring the community or causing problems, causing blight. But we have the ability at any time at that monthly meeting to determine which ones we want to go after.
And just again, another just factual question. The implication of what you said about a certain number of vacant properties being demolished is that a property owner can get out from under the vacant property fee if instead of renovating the property, the owner demolishes.
That's one of the options, is to demolish it. The fee is actually based on
If the
building.
property is vacant land,
Right.
there's no fee.
Right, it only applies to buildings.
Do you ever demolish yourselves?
Yes, all the time because of structural problems
Yeah.
that are owned by someone else, and we actually take them to sheriff's office as a result of the demolition.
Under this program or a separate
Yes,
program?
absolutely.
Yeah, David?
Do you think this would, Wilmington has a fairly vibrant economy, a lot of building going on, so there's a market for these properties, for redeveloping them. Do you think this approach would work in a more depressed city that didn't have a lot of developers looking for places to build?
Well, one of the things that we've done with this program is develop partnerships with nonprofit groups because we don't particularly want to be in the land management or property maintenance or management side of the business. So we want to work with other groups. We have a lot of nonprofits that are out there doing redevelopment of communities. What it does is it spurs other development, private development. Once you see some enthusiasm going, then other people get involved, and that's the hopes of this entire program.
Bill?
Yeah, the question has to do with replicability, and I gather that there needed to be a change in either your state law or city ordinance to implement this program. Would that be a requirement? I mean, wouldn't that be somewhat of an inhibitor in terms of being able to replicate the program?
Well, the codes were adopted by our city councils, so they are city codes. It wasn't until a year after that that they actually introduced House Bill 428 in the Delaware State Legislature, that vacant property fees became liens against the real estate. So it worked for a year prior to that. And I know, having talking to other municipalities, they have different ways of collecting fees. They can add fees right onto the taxes and things like that, so I can see where it would be replicatable.
Yeah, because you're obviously a candidate not only for the regular award, but the Fannie Mae award for affordable housing. Could you move us to a focus on what you've done in affordable housing? What we've been told here is that you provided more than 1,000 additional affordable housing units with a reduction in blight and a reduction in crime, but we haven't heard much how that
Well, a
works.
lot of it, as I mentioned earlier, with the nonprofit groups, because they're not paying for the properties if we own them. A lot of the properties that we take to sheriff's sale, we actually give those to the nonprofits groups.
So you give it to them, they create the housing?
That's exactly. They do all the renovations, and they're not paying for the property, so they can offset some of their costs as a result of not paying for the property. And in addition to that, we also offer grants and things of that nature.
Is that a viable model for other communities?
I would think so, absolutely.
Because it seems to be one of the most important things you've achieved is to not just reduce the vacant properties, put the fees on, but you've actually created more housing.
Oh, absolutely.
And that's actually the goal of the program, is to create more affordable housing for people.
Right. And at what rate are you adding them now? How many units per
We've
year?
done probably in the last 4 years over 3,000 or 4,000 new developments.
So it's about 1,000 a year?
Yep.
All right.
One very quick question. Are those these redeveloped properties, are they now part of the tax base,
Yes, they are.
including the ones that are run by nonprofits?
Exactly. Because they actually, one of the things that we're trying to promote is home ownership. Because we find that, rental properties are causing a lot of problems in our community. So as we're giving them out, one of the stipulations is that it has to be home ownership. So we can stabilize some of these communities. And that's where all the statistics lead. Most of our calls for service are going to rental sections of the city. So we're trying to change these communities by providing home ownership.
Mm-hmm. When we talk about not-for-profits, these are actually developers. These are not-for-profit companies that are real estate developers. And as Jeff said, one of the things that they have to do, one of the guidelines, is they have to provide affordable housing for home ownership only, not for investment properties.
And these are community-based nonprofits, community centers that create nonprofit groups because they know the market. They know the people who need the services. And they have housing counseling and all kinds of other things that associate with this program before you can actually own a home.
That's very helpful. Thank you very much.